name is Alex Dale, and I am the founder of the Winery of Good Hope, and I'm the chief of this merry team of characters. The story behind the Winery of Good Hope is a little bit different to a lot of the wineries in the States in Stellenbosch and in the area, in that it's a combination of characters and not so much the story of a farm. And it's a passion and a mission that we've set ourselves, which is in this first generation of winemakers to be making wines in South Africa in the post-apartheid era, is to see what the potential of the Cape is, the potential of wines in this country. And as you can probably hear from my accent, I'm not from here, but we're all people that have been very attracted to the potential of the Cape and the winelands. And we have a lot of experience in other parts of the world, but we have put together a philosophy here, which is one of searching out what is the potential of the finest vineyard sites in South Africa. And that is at times linked to the history, for example, where we are here on the Helderberg in Stellenbosch. And sometimes it's linked to areas which we believe have amazing potential to make amazing, world-class, individualistic wines, but from areas which have not yet really been taken seriously. And so we've focused on 3 areas in the Cape. First, here on the Helderberg in Stellenbosch. The second, about a decade ago we started, before it became what is becoming a trendy area today, is in the Swartland in the Paardeberg. And then the third area, which is also emerging now as one of the finest areas for more delicate wines and aromatics, and that is up in Elgin in the mountains. So 3 very, very different aspects of South Africa. And in all 3, we're making wines which we want to be authentically site-driven, that speak of their geology and their climate, and that are not winemaker-driven or range-driven or commercially driven. And as I mentioned earlier, we've all got lots of experience making wines in France and Australia and internationally. So you might think that we're trying to make French wines here or Australian wines here. We're not. In an era where a lot of wine styles are globalizing, we're actually ironically trying to make the most South African wines we possibly can, the most authentic site-driven wines we can. And so our winery is called the Winery of Good Hope, but within that we have 4 different ranges of wine. Now that makes things very complicated. We never look for the shortcut. We tend to make things more difficult for ourselves. But the reason we do that is because each level of wine that we make and each region that we specialize in has its own character and has its own raison d'etre. And we don't want to have everything under one amorphous, I almost said bland, but I meant brand. But there you go, that's for a reason. We like to have individualistic wines, and we like to have wines which have their own life and their own story. So yes, we make it complicated by having the 4 ranges, but it's very interesting if you follow our wines to understand why each of those exists. We started, Ben Radford and myself. Ben is actually from the Barossa and I grew up in Burgundy. We started making wines in South Africa in the late 80s, and then both moved down here accidentally at the same time in '94, and Ben and I started what became Radford Dale, taking our 2 surnames obviously. And when we started the Winery of Good Hope, we wanted our first endeavor to be very premium and build our production from there as a collection of wines starting at the very high end and then working down from there. So Radford Dale has always been our flagship, and that is the most it's the highest point that we think we can reach in our production, in our quality terms and in terms of our philosophy. Then below that we have a range which is called Land of Hope, and Land of Hope is very much in the same quality level as Radford Dale, but it has a different purpose, and that is to benefit our team, and particularly our previously disadvantaged individuals who make up the majority of our team. And what we did is we put in place a trust which is called Land of Hope Trust, and 50% of the brand belongs to the trust, 50% to the company, and 50% of the profits go straight to the trust, and it today funds the education of 13 children, private education. And for us that's a very important part of social upliftment, is to give the next generation a serious uplift in life, and not just materialistic shot in the arm every now and again to buy a flat screen TV or some pair of trainers. We're not interested in that. We're interested in giving them a really decent education so that they can carry on and further what we've done. The range beneath that, which is a very focused range called Vinum, is specializing purely in the Helderberg and in Stellenbosch and making what we think is excellent quality wine, handcrafted wines, but at a very affordable price. And when we started about 15 years ago, that was a different dynamic to what was going on at the time when things were booming. And then the last thing that we added to our portfolio was, ironically, the range which carries the name the Winery of Good Hope. And those wines are our entry-level wines. They're certainly not entry-level for South Africa, but they are, even at that level of pricing that they are situated at, they represent high-quality, handcrafted, individualistic wines made in small quantities, and we make them very affordably. So rather than using, skimping on the fruit quality or buying bulk from over the mountain, we use younger vineyards. We don't use a lot of oak, slightly higher yields. We pass on savings on packaging using cheaper dry goods. But importantly, the vineyard sites are fantastic, the wines are handmade, and they're high quality for value. So that explains our pyramid, the reason behind the 4 ranges. And I invite you to explore them individually because they are completely separate and worth discovering.